Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 84 of the Office Hours podcast. We're back here with Mo. We wrapped up the carnivore thing. Now we're back to things tech. So let's see where we're gonna end up today. Hey, Mo, how you been? Enjoying the summer?
Uh, yeah. Honestly, yeah, I can't complain. We don't have a lot of it, so you gotta do what you gotta do and enjoy the little bit of it that you have. So you don't even have much choice. I feel like it's a lot of activities, and you just have to enjoy it, like because you have the rest of the month to miss it. I mean,
Yeah,
hopefully you're not missing it. Do you miss the summer when it's done? Are
I mean,
you?
I kind of do. You know, I guess with life, you kind of get to fewer and fewer things every year when it comes to like
Mm,
summer.
true.
But we are going camping on Tuesday for like 4 or 5 days on a lake, so that would be nice. It's gonna be like a first proper one. I mean, we went a few weeks back, but the water was still too cold to like actually enjoy it. So this
What do
time,
you,
huh?
what do you do when you go camping by the lake? Like.
Well, we have like a huge inflatable thing that we hang out and have drinks and play various games, and we swim. One guy brings a
Mm,
boat, so sometimes we go on a boat.
mm,
Sometimes people do like what is it? Wake surfing. I always confuse the wake surfing with wakeboarding. The one where you get towed by the rope, like with the bindings on the board. Because the other one is where you just stand on the board with your own 2 feet and you're not supposed to get towed. You're supposed to like ride the wave itself. So
mm.
he has the one where you get towed the entire way through. But I much prefer the one where you do the boat. It's a bit slower and it's kind of a little bit more technical. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't play with water like that. I barely even swim, so yeah. But that sounds fun. That sounds fun though. Honestly, yeah, it sounds fun. I like outdoorsy stuff. But in the summer, it gets too hot around here, so you don't even want to be out so much.
Yeah. No, it's gonna get really
Yeah.
hot today. I think it's gonna go like over 34 outside or something like that. Because it
Mm,
was it was hitting like 33 at the peak last night, so it's getting really hot.
yeah, yeah. But can't complain. Because then at some point it gets really cold. So can't complain. Can't complain at all. Can't complain at all. But yeah, today I was I have a really hot question in my mind, you know.
Ooh.
Because like I spent some time on social media this week,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean I'm back on it. Like for a while I didn't really spend some time on like X and all. So but the conversation that is like my timeline these days is about like, this whole like AI stuff and like all the new technology things you could do. I noticed that a lot of people are actually building more products now, which is cool. A lot of people are showing up because I have this group um building in public. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people come out to like show off their new SaaS product and how much they're generating in a month and stuff like this. And sometimes you just like think about your life, like, yeah, you know, I mean, it's kind of motivated to be honest. But I was thinking, like, and while it's impressive, like what everybody's doing, do you feel like software engineering is losing its soul? Like the soul of software engineering, the grind of it, like the whole idea of software engineering, what it used to be.
So when
I
you
should
say
remember
that,
it.
like, what do you mean by that? Because I think that there's distinct sort of ages in terms
Mm-hmm.
of how it feels in software
Mm-hmm.
engineering, and I think we're just like in the next iteration of it. So like in what is your nostalgic definition of the feel of software engineering?
Well, first of all, I don't think we would have the same definition of it because I feel like maybe like it's when I started it might be different from yours because I was thinking like for me before now um most of these things that vibe coding and things I guess I'm in the generation where I would call this kind of things new school.
Mm-hmm.
This whole idea of like yeah you could build a SaaS product in like 10 minutes, with Windsurf or something like this or but the whole craftsmanship like the commoditization, the passion project, the whole metrics, everything is kind of different now. And I'm just wondering, like, is it losing its soul or is it becoming something different entirely?
I think it kind of is. Uh, I think we brought this the thought before with like the dawn of the automobile era where like people were building their own automobiles and like it was completely unregulated. Everybody was doing their own thing, trying out different
Hmm.
things. Like you can build your own automobile and drive it around. And then eventually it started to become more formalized and more this and more that. And it's like just it's like an avalanche rolling down the hill. Like the,
Hmm.
the the amount of
Hmm.
snow, like it picks up with itself, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the amount of like regulation and all the different things, it just keeps accumulating. It's like the reason all cars look the same these days mostly has to do with safety requirements rather than the actual design language. Like you just can't have cars that look like the cars from 20 years ago because safety requirements make it virtually impossible, right? So that's why they all sort of converge to the same type of thing. It's actually just reminded me of something that I saw recently, that there's this thing where a lot of crustaceans, like the ancient ones, they all converged toward the crab shape because I guess like evolutionarily, like all these different branches of crustaceans, through
Hmm.
evolution, they all broadly converged onto a crab as we know it today, right? So it's like it's the most efficient thing to do down there, and everybody kind of converged toward it. So it's now the same. It like that process went through with cars, where it's like everything is just this sort of roughly uniform blob with very few identifying features. Like you mostly tell cars apart by like the shape of their headlights or their taillights, not as much as like the shape of the body itself. Like before, it's like who's that Pokemon type thing. Like you can show a profile of a car, just the
Hmm.
profile, and people will be able to recognize because a lot of the designs were so iconic. But these days, it's like this blob looks more or less like that blob, like except maybe Cybertruck, which is very distinct. Everything else is kind of the same, right? And so
You
I
know
think,
what?
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't really think of I mean I think that's still a bit like debatable though, you don't think? Like maybe physically you could say like they all have like four wheels. I mean, four tires,
Yeah, but
and
like
maybe
even
some of
even
them.
internally, most of the stuff it's all OEM. It's like Bosch produces all of the electronic components for like 75% of cars, right? So your ECU in your Audi is basically exactly the same as it's gonna be in BMW, exactly the same as it's gonna be in like a Renault or something. It's they all buy
Oh yeah,
all
you
of
mean
these
the tech
things,
part of it?
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
externally they're converging, but internally they're also like more and more unified in terms of how they're built, which is, I guess, dictated by supply chains. And it's like,
Hmm.
why would we bother designing our own system where we can get off an off the shelf one? Especially again, talking to the whole regulation aspect. It's like, we
Hmm.
know that this thing has been certified, and we just procure it and install it in our car, we're good. Like, we don't have to really do much else, in my very layman's understanding of it. And very few people have the know-how to do that. And the fact it's like, I've been watching. We kind of diverge toward cars, but I'll circle back to the point I'm trying to make here.
Okay.
But there's a supercar manufacturer out of Sweden called Koenigsegg, which is basically this very rich guy's pastime. He likes supercars and he likes building
Hmm.
supercars. And they basically build the whole thing in house, including all the ECUs and all the other things. And this way,
Hmm.
they can fine tune them very exactly to what their vehicle is doing. Because again, like if you buy a generic off a shelf component, it's going to give you like 95% of the functionality, but all of the really specific things it's just not going to have because it's trying to cater to the mass market effect. Like as much as the cars, there's like mass market of the car manufacturers, like it tries to cater to all of them so they buy their things, right? But it's not going to be like super fine tuned. So yeah, you can get a car with all these custom components that are tailored for performance, and you're gonna pay like $1 million for it. Or you can get a mass-produced commuter car that's going to have like all these generic components. It's going to look fairly generic. Internally, even all of the controls, it's like, oh, you either get Apple CarPlay or you get Android Auto, and pretty much like the infotainment is like, again, that homogenized. Like Tesla has its own thing, but like for most part, like a lot of these things kind of get more and more homogeneous. And the cars started a while back, right? Like the cars were fairly well understood by the time computers came around, and that was the same thing too. Like people would build their own computers. People will make computer kits, like you get a bunch of microchips and you like solder them together and you get a computer, right? And then eventually it got completely pushed out by like a handful of architectures that are dominating the market. And the same, it's sort of the same pattern repeats everywhere. Like with software, you know, people would write in machine code, then assembly, then compilers came along, and then it was like, okay, here's the Microsoft compiler and here's the Borland compiler, and because either of them costs like, you know, exorbitant amount of money, you kind of have to make that choice and stick with it and tailor everything around it. And then we hit open source, and it's like, oh, you can literally pick anything that you want. But again, like all of these things, like the incentives, they start kind of getting more and more unified. So, you know, like before, if you wanted to release on Mac or if you wanted to release on PC, completely different architectures, completely different APIs, completely different operating systems, like those things were distinct and unique. And these days, you write an app and you like deploy it on all platforms. They all look the same. They don't like follow the OS's design language for most part. Everybody's building those Electron apps. So again, there's like a lot of internal homogenization and unification happening. And I think that the early era of, hey, I've built my own computer from scratch and I designed my own compiler, like those are very romantic times. Now, forget romanticism. It's all been completely stamped out. You're just churning out code as fast as possible to satisfy an ever-growing demand for it. I don't necessarily know how much more romantic you can be about the domain of software engineering and computer science. I don't really feel it anymore. I don't know, maybe I'm just like older and more cynical now compared to when I was in my 20s. But it certainly feels like that. So, and the other thing I feel like a lot of, which kind of ties into something that I wanted to talk to you about, but the sense of discovery, it feels like it's mostly gone. Like you don't discover much these days in the domain of computer science. It's like that meme, you know. It's like born too late to explore the world, born too early to explore the universe. So I just sit here and post dank memes. So it's kind of the same, right? It's like, okay, go ahead.
Well, let me just chime in here, because I had the same thought a while ago, but recently I'm starting to realize that I've seen new things come up. I've seen a few shiny discovery. For example, I mean, a few years ago, everyone was crazy about Web3, blockchain, and stuff like this. Recently, like people were talking about AI and the whole like innovations around it. And I've seen a few things come around.
Yeah, I guess if
Go
I were
on.
to just briefly say that when I mean discovery, it's like if I'm a new person entering the domain today versus when I started it, like probably as a hobby, I started it when I was a little kid. So that would be like 30 years ago, right? Even maybe more.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
Shut up, Siri. Yeah, that's a discovery. Stop listening to our conversation, Siri, you creep. So when I mean discovery, like literally when I was a kid and a friend of my family, they were buying used computers in Germany and then selling them in Belarus as a business, right? And my bedroom when I was like 5 years old was used as a bit of a storage spot. So I had all these boxes, and computers were much bigger back then, right? Like you need a huge box for the display. You need a big box for the tower itself. So like that thing was packed like floor to ceiling. But I had this unique opportunity of just having one unpacked on my desk, a new one every week. And because they were used, they sometimes still came with some residual software. Like they would all have like MS-DOS. It was pre-Windows basically for me. So they would have MS-DOS installed on them. Some might have Norton Commander installed on. But basically what happens is you turn it on, you get some booting stuff happening, and then you just have this bare DOS prompt with this white blinking square in the corner, and like, here you go figure it out. Like literally, and no one in my family obviously knew anything about it, right? So there's like nobody to reach out to, no internet, no books, nobody even knew what the hell it was about. And it's just like, well, go figure it out. You want to have some fun and enjoyment out of it? Go figure it out. And that has been pretty much like this, pretty much until I would say Google, because Google made accessibility to the knowledge, like the jump in accessibility to knowledge, just like by orders of magnitude, just like blasted through the roof. But
Was that
before
Google,
then,
though? Was it Google? I think. Was it
they had
Google
search
or-
engines before that. Like recently, in some chat, there was like all of the reminiscing boomers talking about all the things, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember using Alta Vista Digital Search, which was like the digital corporation's own search, and that was like one of the first search where you have like the notions of the search as we have it today, where you have like a search box and you type something in and you click search and it gives you links to all of these pages, right? So that was pre-Google. And that was kind of it, because it was such a budding new thing. So when Google came out, and Google was really good back then before it got completely turned into a complete shit show through all the corporate incentives. You type something into Google and you get your answer like 3 seconds later. It was like mind blowing, right? So the amount of effort it took to find stuff. And again, the other cool thing too is because it was the dawn of Google, SEO as a thing did not exist. And like garbage doorway sites and like all of these content rewriting aggregators that just try to like suck up Google's relevance for search of like ad payouts, that did not exist. So you type something, you get what you want because the internet was clean. It hasn't been polluted by all this SEO garbage that we have like ad nauseum today. But the quest of finding out the information, like you would have to go register on a forum, post your question, get hazed and berated for how dumb your question is, and then somebody begrudgingly would like take you under their wing and start like teaching you shit. So it was a very labor intensive process to actually get through all of this.
So you're saying you missed this labor part? Wait.
I don't know if I necessarily miss it, but I think that without having it, people kind of lost their ability to do it, which was the big thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Is that these days I see so much, and I have been seeing it for like the last 5 to 10 years, and more now. It keeps increasing. Like the trend is that's bothering me. Is that at the first sight of the most trivial problem, new developers today, they just stop and then they're like, I don't know what to do. Help me. If I was in that situation at that stage, I had no options of doing anything except trying to figure it out. And now people just don't seem to know how to figure it out or want to figure it out.
Okay, so I have something to say about this, right? I've seen over the time I've spent in the industry, like at my level right now, I've worked with some maybe like junior devs and like people who always do the first thing, like call out for help and stuff like this. But this is what I have to say about it. I think there is a difference between you being a code machine, like a hired software engineer, and you being a hobby software engineer. There are two different things. And then there is a solo software engineer. If you work as an employed software engineer, you work for a company and you are expected to hit certain metrics. You spending extra time to figure out a problem, it's not really helping anybody. I mean,
It's
aside from
helping you.
Aside from you.
Well,
The
it's
company
not
is not
helping.
really
Okay. I would take offense to that because it's not helping anybody right now except you. But 5 minutes later, when the same situation arises, if you've gone through it yourself, you learned. If you've not gone through it yourself, 99% certainty from my personal point of view, you haven't learned shit. You just replicated what you've been told to replicate, and the next time the same situation arises, it's going to be this again. It's going to be the rabbit in the headlights, deer in the headlights. I don't know what to do. Help, please help.
And that's the difference. So this is, in my own point of view, this is the difference. This is where the difference comes in between like the one who actually wants to learn and the one who doesn't. Because from the company's point of view, you spending 8 hours trying to show that you can solve a problem, you have just cost the company 8 hours of work. Instead of you asking
But you cost them 8 hours of work once, as opposed to costing them some hours of my time, a whole bunch in perpetuity. You get what I'm saying, right?
I completely can relate with you, and I wouldn't even want it because now I'm distracted. If I have to help you with something, and now I'm spending 1 hour to help you with something out of my own like a few hours I'm supposed to use for myself, now I'm distracted because now I have to find a way to game focus on back on what I was doing. So this is a different thing. But I'm just saying, as the from the business perspective, if you spend 8 hours on doing this, you've helped yourself to learn 8 hours because you're gonna mess a lot of shit up along the way, and now you've learned. Good. But the difference now between two people is like if within the time that you got help, you did not learn this while you were being helped. And then when it happens again, you call again. Now this is not a good thing. Because now you're just like holding back somewhere.
Right, but there's like 1,500 people in the digital division of my company, so there's plenty of targets to sap their attention away from and not being necessarily discovered for like not being able to do basic things, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very, I would like, it almost feels kind of horrible to call it parasitic, but it kind of is in a sense, in a way where I am prepared to share my knowledge and explain my ways, but people they're satisfied with the outcome and they don't care about the process. And it's just too easy. And I find it that it's not just in software engineering. Like I talk to people and like people from a lot of different disciplines that has nothing to do with engineering in general. They say it's like people kind of miss out on basic causality things and feel completely paralyzed as soon as anything unexpected happened. It's like some pop-up appeared on screen. I don't know what to do. Have you tried reading it? No, I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong.
Yeah, true.
So
true.
Where is this coming from, right?
I can tell you where it's coming from. This is, okay. I mean, from my own perspective. So like nowadays, like there's there are like, first of all, we talked about the metric stores, and also like there's like these dependencies on like the correct answer. Before we were not afraid. Like I remember when I started working, we were allowed to take risk. You were allowed to break things. You were allowed to do something. And if it breaks, oops, I mean, you're still gonna get a little bit of talking to, but like, yeah, it's not the end of the world. But nowadays, companies are like taking statistics of like how many times there was this PR reverted PRs, and like, and this at the end of the day, these are metrics that goes into like your metrics as a personal engineer. So I feel, as I was going to even talk to you about today, like I feel like this is one of the things that I see like is making the whole the profession itself like maybe lose so because like many things are made based on metrics now. It's not really like an art anymore. It's not like
Yeah, and as you know,
you are
picking bad metrics will lead you to bad decisions and bad outcomes.
yeah. So I
Because
feel like
metrics,
this is
I
where
find that having metrics, like, I'm not saying having good metrics is easy. It's just having metrics is easy. And a lot of people would say, well, I have all of these metrics. I have visibility into how things are going. Is that true? I don't think so. I think that it's very far removed from the truth. Like, there are
True.
very few metrics, high level, that will, like, how much of the detail of the story do you want? Like, the biggest metric of it all, I would say, again, it's probably a bad comparison, but like the biggest metric of them all is share price. It's just, but like the share price can be affected by so many things, but ultimately, seeing how many PRs are being closed is not a reasonable metric. It doesn't really tell you anything. And as we talked about before, any metric picked is gonna get gamified immediately, right? So people like, if I can get personal bonuses by gaming the metric, I'm gonna game the metric because that's a very reasonable thing for me to do.
Yeah. That's what we're doing. That's what everyone is doing. That's why you have so many people coming to you to ask questions. Like, this is it. I guess this is it because.
But the thing is, like, this makes it it makes it a really bad atmosphere because effectively, I'm not incentivized. Like, I'm asked to do all of this work, but it's gonna be their name on the pull request.
Yeah.
Right. Which means for people collecting the metrics, they're not seeing my contributions into it at all. So I'm in a shit position. My time has been wasted. That person didn't learn anything, most likely. And it's just the downsides for me. And the thing is like, for me personally, because my big personal sort of drive in this industry was this whole mentorship approach, because I liked explaining to people how things work and for them to understand and start applying it in their own craft, right? This goes completely contrary to this whole idea, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, like half of my reason of doing this thing is now gone because of these shenanigans, and then the second half is going to be gone when our benevolent AI overlords take over. So I'm in a bit of an existential crisis here, not gonna lie.
I was just about to say that. Like I was gonna ask you, like, do you feel like you're losing the romance? Like your relationship with your relationship here is going through it. Because if this is what you really enjoy, I was gonna say like now people would no longer need to like ask a lot of questions because a lot of companies are like hiring and like deploying like AI tools, different types now, different types.
Dude, I kid you not. In one of the chats a couple of days ago, some guy posted a screenshot of ChatGPT explaining why he should pick this file name versus that file name, and it was just like the most bike sheddy, inconsequential thing possible. And it's like, if we start like, what was the word I was gonna use? We start delegating these types of decisions to AI on like this very mundane level, eventually it starts to creep, right? And eventually it starts to get to a more profound level of delegation of responsibility to outside of yourself, right? So like by doing this, people just become more and more of a conduit of like piping some data from here to there and not being involved themselves personally in any process. And I think that also diffuses the responsibility. It's like, oh well, the AI suggested it and I just went with it. And we have a mandate to incorporate more and more AI in our practices, so it was AI's fault. I have nothing to do with it. I'm just a messenger, I just typed in the prompt in the AI and did whatever it told me to do. So
yeah, this is
like,
where I would draw the line, to be honest. Like for me, this is where I would draw the line, because I feel like um you could really, there's nothing wrong with like working with Copilot or like any whatever AI tool like that you have, but the job is different now. Now you're the boss of this tool, and imagine that you being responsible for how they work. You don't even know what they're supposed to do, so you can't just show up and say like the AI said I should do it. Like now, why are you even here? Because like, yeah, we could ask James from customer success to do the same thing. Like, to put the prompt in
Well,
too. So
I think the whole idea, right, is like,
and they will probably put the better prompt. You know.
well, I don't know. I don't know about that. The thing is like you are supposed to be the quality gate,
Yeah,
right? But that's
exactly.
hard. That's hard. And I think that people who can be that rather not be that because it's kind of degrading. It's like, oh, you're supposed to like shoveling shit after this AI trying to find, bits of wisdom inside of it. And you just have to sift through like all these lines of code that it produces. And you're trying to catch errors. And catching errors is hard. Like, when you do code reviews, catching errors of your peers is hard, but like catching errors of AI, like your peers, as gifted as they are, can only produce so many lines of code in a given day. So there's like a upper limit on the amount of shit flowing through that particular pipe you have to wait in to kind of see it and like, okay, say, okay, this is good, this is not good. AI can just go at it all day, nonstop, and you're supposed to be there to put your stamp of approval saying, okay, we're allowing this. So not very many people would like to do this job. There's like nothing creative of it. And then that type of responsibility get pushed down the pipe. So more and more junior people are doing it, and they don't have the experience to actually discern the good from bad. Like they have capacity to understand, to discern good from bad, but the spectrum is just much narrower. Like they don't see all the other bad cases that a more experienced engineer would have, which drives the quality down ultimately because they're going to let more bad things through because they just don't have enough experience to see it. So overall, the quality goes down. And then the burden of supporting it and understanding it still is going to be with the more experienced ones. So we put ourselves in a situation where like being a senior engineer now is getting the short end of almost every stick with like what potential benefit.
Yeah. But I mean, I see this perspective and I agree with it, to be honest, because like, but in my own point of view, I feel like it's still kind of like we're still going to end up at the same place. The only difference is just we're going to go there faster. For example, if someone who is just starting out with first year working with React, for example, first year working with React, I don't expect you to have the same level of experience as someone who has been doing this for 5 years and above. So there will be some concepts that you probably would think is a good thing to do. And when it gets into review or like before it goes into production, hopefully the good team like will have someone who is going to catch it before it goes into the production. And I think it's the same thing because if we're being honest, most of these AI tools, I don't think they are, I mean, and I might be wrong here, I still see them as like at best like intermediate right now. And that's just being optimistic, really. And so if you, for example, we give this kind of tool to like a junior dev or like a junior engineer, I mean, the one that put a bit of effort to probably try to like find what is the good idea and why you doing this or like stuff like this before it gets to the senior guy. But if there was no AI tool, the only difference would have been that they would take more time to give this responsibility to the senior guy. So now the process that usually takes like 5 days because the guy is going to spend like 4 days figuring it out and then 1 day to implement what he's figuring out. And now the senior dev or the senior engineer will probably be like, oh yeah, You mess the entire thing up, go start again.
But it would
it's just like
normally be a good thing to spend more time figuring it out as opposed to like putting it down on the page, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you know, when people like start talking about their IDEs and how many words per minute they can type on their fancy Kinesis keyboards, is like I don't spend most of my time pressing buttons. I spend most of my time thinking. Right? And now
True.
we're deferring all the thinking to something else. And we're supposed to like how are you supposed to train your own cognitive muscle of discernment of what is good and what is bad if you're not doing it? You're delegating all of it. You know? Like, I
Yeah.
bet that if I put you into a motorized exoskeleton and make you like walk everywhere, like, sure, you can pick extremely heavy boxes and you can run really fast and you can
Mhm.
jump really high. But if you're going to be in that suit for a year, after I pull you out of it, you're going to collapse on the floor and you'll crawl because you won't be able, like, you won't have your muscle of your own left anymore to even walk or stand upright. That's the analogy
True.
I'm trying to make. Like, it does
Yeah, true.
improve your productivity, but at what cost? And then
Yeah, I
eventually,
agree.
you know, it's like probably again not the best analogy, but you know, like the astronauts coming back from space, the weightlessness gives them like horrible consequences, and like they spend like 6 months in space, and then they have to spend 3 years recovering to their base level, right? So
Mhm.
it's like you can't even get back to where you need to be fast enough, and you're starting people use these tools, you know, before they haven't even had a chance to develop any musculature of that way in the first place.
I see what you mean. Well, I mean, from this perspective, would you say maybe this type of tool should not be available to everyone? It should be available to at a
I think that
certain
that that
level?
that cat's out of the bag now. Like you can't put it back. And
Yeah.
it still goes down to the same thing that we kind of keep bringing up every once in a while, is that the pace of innovation far outstrips our ability to adapt to it. Like it's out the
Mm.
bag. Now we
Mhm.
have to learn to live with it. We barely learned to live with the internet as it is, and now this thing is going to be throwing another wrench into the gearbox. And there's no amount of legislation or anything like that that you can do to kind of put it back. So
Mhm.
it's out there now. Now we just whatever comes out of it 10 years down the line, we don't necessarily know,
Mhm.
but that's it. Like that course has been set. I don't think that it would be very easy to undo that.
Okay. But in the positive side of it, let's say like right now we're talking about how to. I mean, we kind of feel. I mean, it's quite similar about like the whole situation of things. But in the case where we want to say like we want to reclaim the craft, like I mean, a few years ago, I remember you and me we had a conversation about was it then when OpenAI launched ChatGPT? I think it was about that time, like I think 2 or 3 years ago. Like we were talking about it,
Probably, yeah.
and I mean, in our conversation, we are thinking maybe it was just like a new shiny thing, and like it was gonna go away at some point. You know how like many things come and go, and yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, there was also the chances that it was going to stay for a long time, and now it's like seeming like it's actually staying. Like we don't have a choice. We have to drink this tea.
Well, the thing
So,
is, I don't know if we're fully through the hype curve on this yet. I still think that we're like in the pre-peak stage of the hype curve. So the
do you know
crash,
why?
I feel like the crash is yet to come.
Do you know why I feel like this is not a hype? It's not a hype. I don't think it's just a hype. The
Everything's
reason is if
everything
you,
everything goes through the hype curve. Like pretty much all things go through the hype curve, you know?
I
So
think it's pretty solid.
uh
I feel it's pretty solid, but who knows what the future holds? I was just gonna ask a question about it though, like
yeah, yeah.
how do we, with all this being around, how can engineers still enjoy the craft, like enjoy the grind the way we used to in the past, like the whole community part of it. Like we all sometimes I remember
Okay,
like
I think that the whole grind concept, you probably associate software engineering with grind because you entered it a bit later. But when I was starting out, the grind was never really part of it. Like
what
that's
do you mean?
the tech bros of 2010s where the grind
Ah.
concept comes in, you know?
Wait. Let
Like
me explain what I meant. Let me explain what I meant. So for example, um we had moments where like we could have like an issue and we'll have like a, a whiteboard moment, you know, like everyone comes to the whiteboard, we figure it out together, you know, we actually like go through the rigor of it together, like we've tried to find a solution together. But now nobody is doing this, nobody's even asking any question on any forums anymore. Like, bruh, you have you have pick your weapon now. You have Cloud Code, or how do you say that? Cloud Code. You have ChatGPT. You have Copilot. You have different battles now. So like, there is no more the thing with it anymore. So that's what I meant by the grind. What did you understood as the grind? What do you think it was?
I guess the word grind to me associates with like the like late 2000s startup culture.
Oh no, I mean that's a different thing. But that's not
But
what I meant to.
when you say the word grind, that's like the first thing that comes up to my head is like the, you know, when it switched to nerds, from nerds to entrepreneurs
Yep.
type thing, like that's when the
Mm,
grind for me started. So I was never about that life.
nah.
But okay, I see what you mean. Which now it kind of brings this other thing too, is before, you know, you have a forum, you have a community, you have
Mm,
people on that forum who are skilled in particular things, and you know, you can ask this guy about this, you can ask that guy about that. There's communal discussion that is open to the internet. Even like Stack Overflow, you know, as much of it as it is gamified for weird incentives, was still mostly a public forum where
mhm.
the artifacts of those discussions are still there. You can still go on Stack Overflow and find discussions where people were trying to figure something out. And now when you're conversing with ChatGPT, you're effectively depriving the rest of the world of that conversation.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
only there marginally for your benefit, but mostly for the benefit of the company providing you with this agent, because they're definitely using all that data for, you know, further training. I guess you like in some derived way producing the benefit to the world in like the next iteration of the algorithm, but that benefit is captured in a sense that it's not like I can go on Stack Overflow or some forum and read stuff and make some connections in my head and derive some immediate benefit out of it. Whereas this potential benefit is going to be captured in this newer version of the model that I have to have a subscription for. And it's like, it's very disconnected. And now, like, you know, I don't even get to learn necessarily about it and incorporate it into my own head, rather than I'm just gonna shell out a couple of dollars and get the solution I want and copy paste it into the thing I'm doing. Again, like removing my own creativity out of the equation almost completely in this scenario. So
Mm.
to me, that's very dystopic in a sense. And if you're asking me if the romantic notions are gone, yeah, they're gone. They're gone, man.
Wow.
Now
But
I'm gonna be sounding like a hippie from the '60s. It's like, it's all gone, man.
I mean, I see. But there should be a way to still enjoy these things. But I see maybe it's just maybe it's just us because who feels this way? I wonder the generations that come after me, for example, um, who are probably going to be heavily um dependent on these things. Because like I, for example, I was in a meeting in the week about with some guys from Cursor, and someone had said something about like, oh, if you query for too long in a chat, at some point the tool starts to produce responses that are not really relevant to the situation. So now
Yeah, it
you
starts to get
say,
more and more unhinged.
yeah. So that means that that's a default. That's a problem, right? Like this is not a good thing. So I guess I mean I lost my train of thought here, but I guess like what I'm trying to say is like I guess what I'm trying to say is like there is still like some loopholes here. And we have not reached the level where we can actually like really heavily depend on these tools at the end of the day. But the people who will come after us will be like really heavily dependent on it, and now they cannot really solve their own problems. Because for us, when cursor cannot solve the problem, you just close it and then actually think about it yourself and figure it out. But
Do you though?
but
Do you really?
yeah, you don't.
I mean, I don't
You
use
don't.
those tools, so I don't know. But
Vasili, you need to join the generation. You cannot
overall,
code.
you just go in a Slack and ask somebody else. And
No,
then
you
they
don't
go
do
to
that.
Cursor, and then they try to finagle the answer out of it a little bit better.
Vasili,
Maybe.
I get it. I see. Software engineering is like any other industry. It's growing, it's changing. We have to adapt to the new tools. I mean, it may not be what we were used to, and I still feel like it's like my own pain point is different from like even the AI thing. I guess I've been feeling like this since the commercialization of the industry and like so much that see my pain is different, but
Mm.
this point to me is like I mean it's like when we had manual cars, you know, some people still
Mm-hmm.
prefer manual cars till day. It doesn't mean like your life is not better with an automatic car, like you don't have to think about when to hit the clutch and when to go to change gears and all. But um yeah, I guess this is the same way I see it. Like
Yeah,
it will change. But
I was just remembering this. There's this Russian poet of the Silver Age, like in the 1930s, whom I quite like, and he has this poem where he's basically lamenting that he's remembering like the captains of the days of yore, you know, discovering the Earth,
Mhm.
like, you know, Columbus and Vasco da Gama and like all the other ones who are, you know, went into fully uncharted territories and discovered something new and how romantic it was. And, you know, one of the lines is, there's probably a very good translation into English, which I don't know, so I'm just trying to translate it in my head from Russian. It's like, as if not all the stars have yet been counted, and as if our world haven't been fully discovered yet. So that was his lament that, you know, by his age, he thought that the world was fully discovered. There was nothing, there was no challenge. It's all known. You can't just hop on a ship and sail into the unknown and find some new lands here too unknown and have that, you know. I feel like, and he was writing it about the world in like 1930s or something like that, right? And it kind of feels very reminiscent of that here, is that there is no sense of this, like the sense of discovery for people has collapsed to a very small group of very, very high level individuals that actually get to come up with something new and exciting, like AI algorithms. People in the pixel mines, they're not discovering shit. You know, they go on Stack Overflow, they read their React tutorials, and then bang out components for days on end. So, you know,
I don't think I
romanticism
agree with it.
wise, I don't know. I don't know.
You know what? I guess this is quite debatable. I guess it depends on how you see innovation and what you really refer to as discovery. And it could be different, like for different people. Because I think, sorry, but I think like, say for example, if you take like calculators, for example, I feel like when mathematics started to be, I mean, in the olden days, there were like different tricks to take numbers and like to calculate numbers and how things works. And over years, the technology starts to improve. Time improved distance over time, you know? And I still feel like we are still, and in the beginning of this conversation also, we were talking about cars and like stuff like this. But to be honest, I feel like the whole introduction of these tools, these new stuffs, though it may like look like it's affecting our ability to discover new things, I still feel like it could be a doorway for people to get a bit more creative. Say, for example, you don't have to do much of the heavy lifting anymore. Now you think about the problems that you want to solve. You're not thinking about the code now. You're actually thinking about the problem itself.
But I don't think you can have one without the other. You have to do heavy lifting to build muscle and understanding. Like if we're bringing it into like physical fitness domain, as you build your muscles and you understand, the kinematics of your own body and how to apply force, you get better at applying force, and because you've developed, you have more force to apply. Like one of the biggest problems of people who go to the gym and attempt to lift heavy is that they don't know the proper technique and movements, so they have poorer results and higher chance of injury. And once they progress and they strengthen their muscles and they learn better technique and proper positioning and movement and limits and ranges and all these things, they get more out of it. So again, like you can wear an exoskeleton and go to the gym and you can do miraculous feats and lift 5 plates like just with one hand easy. It's just not doing anything for you. Like from the outside, if you like squint a little and be like, holy shit, that guy's lifting 5 plates with one hand. But if you understand it properly, not quite.
Did you know what? I feel like
sorry. Let me finish the thought. The goal was never to lift the 5 plates. If you think that the goal was to lift the 5 plates, you were wrong. That's not the goal. The goal is improvement of your body and your mind. So it's all a giant cargo cult. You're mistaking the stars for their reflection in a pond.
If you put it that way, then we are probably speaking about the same thing. Because even in fitness, like there is you won't believe it, there is AI in fitness now. Like you have like AI tools to actually help you to prepare.
And you're saying we don't have hype? What are you talking about?
It is like we have AI tools to help you prepare your training, to help you figure out like your diet, to help you figure out like muscles to work on. But anyway, we could spend hours on this conversation, and we will have different opinions and different ways to see it. And I would be curious to see what people think about it also, like in the comments. It'd be very interesting to hear about like other opinions about this. But maybe in the next episode we could talk more about like code and creativity, because I still feel like maybe for example, if I remember the history very well about programming, nobody really had IDEs first of all in the first place. So like I think there was like people who worked pre-IDE era will probably
I've written a huge chunk of commercial code for which I was paid a salary using the text editor of Midnight Commander, which is like a file manager for Linux, which had syntax highlighting. That was the only thing it had. It had syntax highlighting. That was the only thing that was available to me IDE wise. Yeah.
People. And then there will be people who didn't even have syntax highlighting and will probably still tell you like you had it easier. So like it's generational, and this is just what this generation has to offer. So we just
So this entire conversation is a one gigantic kids these days, basically. Back in my day.
Well, so maybe next time we could talk a bit more about like, you know, the cult of hustle and tech, or like maybe code versus creativity, and maybe we can delve a bit more into it. So yeah, but I appreciate the opinions and the conversation today. So thank you very much, Vasili. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having the conversation with me. I hope everyone else, if you're still with us, you've enjoyed it and have something to say on the subject. And yeah, we'll catch up next time and see where this goes. Thanks, Mo. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
and have a
you.
great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.